everybody. Welcome to InPsightRadio. I am your host, Danielle Egnew, and you are a fly on the wall to everywhere. Happy week. I know there's been a lot of really intriguing energies flying, and personally, when I see a lot of energies like this, I recognize that it's just all a big soup, gang, and whatever flavor we put into it, whatever our spice is, we are brewing up some serious new world concoctions here. And I'm going to get right into our topic today because it's a big one. It's a heavy one. And I've been talking to the angels a lot about how the heck do you talk about this subject? I mean, this is big stuff. And so I've been getting a lot of really great tips from the angelic realm because, angels are messengers and I do a lot of translation for those guys. So in all of this translational work that I do, they help me out a lot also with how I need to present things so that folks will, hear it without completely hitting the wall of freak out. And what we're talking about today is making all kinds of news everywhere. As we've had these insane, crazy hurricanes coming up and multiple tornadoes. And here in Montana, we are prone to hail, yet we've been having hailstorms, the likes that, you don't see those very often out here, where you're actually getting racquetball-sized hail. We had a hailstorm back in August that literally dropped hailstones the size of freaking racquetballs. It just killed my car. Forget about it. I broke windows out of our porch door, wrecked roofs. It can hail in Montana, obviously. We are a high desert plateau weather corridor. So we are prone out here to not a lot of tornadoes, but we can get a tornado or two in the summer months. We're also prone to hailstorms. But the size of this hail and how freezing cold it was when it came down, the temperature dropped about 40 degrees. It was literally something out of a movie. I had not ever seen anything like that in my 50 years in Montana. Now, I've seen golf ball-sized hail. I've seen, quarter-sized hail. But racquetball-sized and a couple of baseball-sized hail, there were 11,000 waterfowl killed in a lake in central Montana. It was a lake, a wetlands area, 11,000. Now, though it's not unheard of for waterfowl to be killed in hailstorms, I just want to make sure that I'm not trying to make it sound like something happened that never happens here, It's not uncommon. However, this was a huge issue. It was a huge ecological issue here. So today we are talking about not only our climate, but what to do when we are literally faced with an extinction level event. And, this has been a really rough topic for me to tackle because you got climate deniers out there who don't even believe it's happening, or they believe that, this has happened before on the earth and it's a natural cycle and blah. I've been shown by the angels that yes, the earth does cycle. It does cycle through its, its little wingdingers of, okay, it's going to get really hot, it's going to get really cold. And we have our big freeze outs for 10,000 years. This is a thing. However, we have definitely added to the warming of the earth since the Industrial Revolution, because you got to remember that Industrial Revolution was happening at the late 1800s and barfing all these carbon emissions from coal and oil just straight out into the air. It's not like we were monitoring stuff like that back then. That just didn't even exist. So when we think about the climate issue that we're facing, it's not like it just came about the last 10 years. This is a cumulative issue. And we've got an administration in the United States right now that is in place, that has been placed by Russia and some United States voters, but mostly by Russia, because Mr. Trump did not have enough indigenous votes to get there without a little wiggle room and a little help. So with some help from Russia, we have an administration now in the United States that is poised to serve the almighty dollar, not just the American interest dollar, but the Russian dollar. When you're looking at Kentucky, you're looking at these places, these states where our United States senators, where Mitch McConnell has put up the largest aluminum plant in the country, and that's supposed to help their state revenue by 45%. And then you've got Senator McConnell saying, well, I never knew that was happening. I had no idea that was going on in my home state. Come on, geez. So, it's been crazy that we've put people in power and other people have put people in power just to make money. And that's what all this is about. And this is where our consciousness gets tapped as not only Americans, but people who inhabit the planet of Earth as Earthlings. Our consciousness gets tapped and we begin to, ask ourselves, how much of this is going to kill us? And, I really have no other way to say this to everybody except to say all of it is going to kill us if we don't make some choices here that are important. Now, is the earth going to go on? When I look into the future, is the earth going to go on? Well, absolutely. The earth is going to be here. And over, who knows how much time, the earth will repair itself. The earth has repaired itself from catastrophic events, such as getting creamed by a giant asteroid and having all of its plant life and animal life, or nearly all of it, wiped off the planet, because of what would be equivalent to a nuclear winter, okay? So this is not the first time the planet of Earth has faced a freak out, everybody. So let's remind ourselves that as we get into this podcast. This is, however, the first time that the planet of Earth has been faced with a cataclysmic event brought on by its inhabitants. And not since Atlantis and Lemuria have we had a situation where something that was inhabiting the planet caused a great destructive event. And most of everybody out there doesn't even believe that Atlantis was real. So we're just going to stick to the science facts today for this podcast because they speak volumes. They speak volumes. Right now on our planet, we are literally facing an extinction level event. And there will be a few people, I'm sure, that will survive. There's probably a few people that can hide underground as weather gets extreme or hide in wherever you hide. I don't even know. It's kind of hard when the whole entire planet is melting down to find a safe space. Yet there are people who I'm sure know how to survive these things. We have within our DNA all sorts of codes that can assist us in heating up the body, in cooling down the body, in getting rid of toxins. I encourage everybody to go online and look up a guy called the Iceman, and watch his videos. This is a regular everyday Joe who had lost his wife to cancer. It was very tragic. And he realized that there was so much more that we could do with our bodies than we were doing. He knew it. And so he studied breathing and meditation. He studied all kinds of things. And this gentleman can now change his body temperature, his core temperature, and also change the oxygenation level of his blood. So he can swim around under the ice in the Arctic Ocean, no kidding, for 7 minutes and never come up for air. Everybody thinks he's dead and he's just noodling around down there. So we do have DNA that is augmentable that can help us through climate catastrophes. So all of this is actual stuff that we've got on our side. We also have the vibration of love. We have the vibration of healing. We have the vibration of helping one another. All of that peace vibration actually affects the ionosphere, which is that very high atmospheric weave around our planet of Earth. And that high atmospheric weave does affect upper air currents. And of course, that's what affects a lot of our weather. Okay. So we've got all kinds of tools here. We've also got a lot that we've dinged up and we're working against right now. As a matter of fact, the climate crisis is so bad that in the UK, in the United Kingdom, they're having children running to psychologists and school counselors, freaking out that they're all going to die. I mean, it is literally a mass event of climate terror that these kids are feeling. And there was an interesting article in the Telegraph that says, now get this headline. You don't see this every day. It says, parents told not to terrify children over climate change as rising numbers are treated for eco-anxiety. And these kids are literally wigging out and they don't know what to do. Obviously we've heard of Greta Thunberg, and she's a wonderful little climate activist. And she's been, people have tried to discredit her because not only does the imbalanced patriarchal hate to be told what to do by a kid, they really hate to be told what to do by a child who is a female. So you have these grown men that go on these sites and try to fat shame. She's not fat, by the way. Try to fat shame Greta Thunberg. They get on there and they start talking all kinds of slag about her. And apparently she's on the spectrum and she talks about autism being a superpower. These same gentlemen are talking about her, calling her horrible things, saying she has a mental disorder and all these things just because they're in denial that our whole planet's ready to burst into flames, right? Don't yell at the kid because we all drive cars. That's just ridiculous. So in this article in the Telegraph, it goes on to explain that these kids are going to their parents and saying, why should we even go to school? Why should I even bother paying my taxes? Why should I even bother participating in society if we're just all going to die? And this is actually a segue into why I believe that the United States of America has chosen to completely just ignore this extinction level event that we're actually in right now. And I'll get to why I keep calling it an extinction level event. Now, can we do something about it? Well, we are literally on the line, but we'll get to that too. So in the United States, we have an administration right now who is rolling back EPA rules, who is rolling back clean water regulations. The Trump administration is insane for taking away any common sense legislation that's going to deal with not polluting our planet. Now, this all is in the name of money. And keep in mind, this is a president who still has direct ties to his businesses, although he's not supposed to. This is a president who has direct ties to a foreign invader of our democracy, but nobody's doing anything about it. I mean, this guy has broken the law in about 1,000 ways, and nobody's doing anything about it because he's making a ton of people a ton of money. So nobody wants to bounce him out because they figure, well, maybe they can cheat again and get him in for another 8 years or 4 years. I don't think that's going to happen. God, I don't see that happening, but you never know. So, things at this point are kind of grim because money is doing the driving. And in the United States, we are climate deniers from the top down as a country. Now, what's rough about that is we ask ourselves, what does that do for the consciousness of the world? Well, the United States produces more media content than any other country on the planet. And Los Angeles is literally ground zero for consciousness in media. That should scare us all. Okay. But it is, you have shows in the UK that will emulate shows in LA. Washington, D.C. and New York are news hubs, okay? But programming comes out of L.A. So why am I talking about all this? Because we have these shows coming out about these, on sci-fi and all these crazy extinction level event movies that come out because we as a collective species, as a consciousness, can feel that crap is unraveling around us, even though we have a financially driven presidential administration that is trying to make money for a lot of investors, and a lot of them are Russian, and trying to make this scaffolding of, who cares? It's just a few years, 4 or 5 years. People can live with it. We'll just make a ton of money in the stock market. We'll make a ton of money in illegal under-the-table deals. And that's going on too, by the way. You just wait 10 or 15 years later when all of this comes out, when we actually have the opportunity to sit down and see the financial destruction that was waged underneath the Trump presidency, and he's just one guy waving like a little red flag so that the bull charges at him, while the whole entire arena of people sit there and are partaking in insider trading and global trading and all kinds of things. And this will all come out, but we've got many years before it does. So what's fascinating to me here is you've got the climate deniers who are saying, well, this is no big deal. No big deal. We're just going to do this and keep him in there for 4 years, make a bunch of money and get him out. Well, here's the problem with that. Back in 2016, when all these Paris Accords were happening and all the Paris Accord that was coming up to that, not even in 2016, everybody was supposed to be cutting their carbon emissions. And the United States was supposed to be cutting ours. by a certain number, by a certain year, and it doesn't even matter because bottom line is we're not even close to hitting it by that year, so it doesn't matter. And if we hit that number, then basically it wouldn't mean it would save the planet. It would mean that it would at least just hold us to our current level of escalation in climate destruction. It would just kind of put the brakes on and keep us to this level. So I want you to think about a graph, like 0 being down here and 100 being up in the right-hand corner. And so we're about at 80% right now. And if the United States and all of these other countries, China and everybody else, adhered to their Paris Accord, target goals, then we just hang on at 80%. And hopefully over time, over hundreds of years, the Earth could cut back that carbon. And if we cut it completely, if we just pulled the plug completely, that'd be a different story. But of course, the Paris Accord didn't really talk about that because the world is still run on gasoline and oil and coal and all these things. So they were trying to at least come up with a semi-realistic way to deal with this problem that we have that's, impending and giant. So here's kind of the Cliff Notes, and you can go online and read about all of this stuff, and they are science journals, so it's not fake news. It's actual news. It's actual science. You can read, again, the science journals are peer-reviewed, gang. So you want to read about stuff like this on a science journal rather than Fox News or MSNBC.com. I mean, those are heavy news magazine outlets, so, So anyway, pretty much, had we done that back when the Paris Accord was put into place, had we hit that target goal, we'd be kind of hanging on at 80%. Well, we didn't. We missed it by a mile. Now our presidential administration is saying, none of this is happening anyway. Let's pretend it's 1920, smoke a cigar and sleep with 16 women of the evening and swish our whiskey and act like a big man on campus. Well, while that's all going on with the cigar and the hookers and the whiskey, the rest of the planet is having problems. And years ago, a couple of years back, I had done some videos just talking about the fact that by the time we hit 2019 into 20, we were going to be seeing really the first of our big clean water problems that were really hefty. And we're seeing that now. And a lot of those water problems are coming in the form of wells needing to be driven deeper and deeper. And that gets rough because you get way deep and all of a sudden you're going to run into the aquifers that are brackish or bitter water. Yet we're pumping all of the junk out of our fracking chemical output into those underground aquifers. So a reasonable person would be thinking, well, now just a minute. Now that kind of sucks that we're pumping all that water down there. I mean, it's maybe 10,000 feet down and okay, it's brackish and gross and nobody really drinks that water. But what if we had to? I mean, what if we had to pump it up and take the brackish out and we just had to drink it because that's what we had left? Well, we're filling that full of chemicals, gang. So anyway, now that's all coming out. And one of the things that I was shown back in 2016 and 17, and you can find all this on YouTube on my channel, is that the fracking was going to be leaking down into the groundwater and causing a lot of problems, and we were going to need that water. So now they're all coming out about these issues, right? And what else is coming out is that we are so far beyond our Paris Accord output limit at this point that instead of holding it at 80%, we've pretty much just punched the metal to the metal. I mean, we've got the pedal to the metal. We are screeching toward a really severe climate for the next many, many years. And what's intense about that is that we are not talking about it. And so I've been talking to these angels saying, should I be saying something about what I'm seeing here? Because this is rough. I mean, we should really be coming together as a species. We should be coming together as human beings and saying, look, we need to vote with our dollar, not at the ballot box. I've started riding my bike more. Now, granted, I live in a teeny little town. It's not teeny, but it's pretty small in Billings, Montana. And it's about 100,000 people, and it's in a valley. And so I think good heavens, I think in 3 years, I put about 14,000 miles on my vehicle. It's not a very big town. Yet even that is 14,000 miles of carbon emissions. I'm a huge meat eater. I eat a ton of meat. And so I've shifted my meat eating to getting non-feedlot beef, because that's what's actually contributing wildly to the destruction of the Amazon rainforest. Are these cow farms? I mean, they're harvesting that forest and flattening it out so that more cattle can graze there, because that is the beef that's bought by McDonald's and Taco Bell and Burger King and all of these great big giant chains. We can't provide enough beef for those big chains. And I mean, some of that beef is really gross. It's like this pink slime and it's just nasty. But that's where we're buying these cattle from. So the United States is not only contributing financially to its own demise, but it's contributing to the demise of the world. And we have choices to make here, gang. And I put this up on Facebook as a kind of a hypothetical question. If you knew that the climate had far surpassed its limit and was barreling towards some bad things, would you tell the press? Would you tell the president? Who would you tell? Would you tell anybody? Or would you want to start a panic or whatever? And it was very interesting to see the results that came out of that. And the bottom line is that our scientists, our climate experts have been trying to talk to us about this for 10 years. And so here's where we're at today on our show. Not only have we missed that 80% hold it to where it was margin, we are now looking at having excess amounts of carbon in the air to actually raise the temperature of the earth. It was supposed to not raise. If it raised more than 1.5 Celsius, then we're melting the ice caps. We're doing all kinds of things. We are killing if we get too much fresh water in the ocean, then the ocean currents don't work properly, because that has to do with cold water sinking, hot water coming up. And it has to do, if we take away the salt in the ocean and we warm it up, we kill the currents. If we kill the currents, we kill the nutrients to our coral reefs. Well, this is already happening, and 50% of the Great Barrier Reef is dead. 50% of it. Dead. D-E-D, lots of D's, dead, okay? You kill the coral reef, you kill a lot of the ecosystem that eats things from the corals, and the bigger fish starve, and it just goes all the way up, okay? So this is 50% of the Great Barrier Reef dead right now. And we were trying to make sure that the global temperature didn't raise more than 1.5 degrees Celsius. Well, now all of our current projections, as we look into that, we're looking at up to 5 degrees Celsius heat increase over the next 15 years. And man, if we clear 2 degrees Celsius, then we're going to get into some cray-cray weather. We're going to be killing fish in the oceans. We're going to be losing evaporative content of water. Our weather's going to get so crazy. It's going to rain like mad. And again, I put out some really interesting articles, and I put out some interesting videos back in 2016-17 about what we're going through right now, talking about how the Midwest was going to flood, and the flooding was going to bring in, it was going to rot the plants and bring toxins into the flooded water, and that's what we've got going on right now, right? So you have these people who don't understand how the climate works, and they're saying, well, yay, it's raining a lot. We've got a lot of water, except for the fact that we don't know how to contain it, and it's leaching chemicals and toxins out of the ground, and then it contaminates the water. So obviously we could come up with some really wonderful ideas to harness rainwater, and we could come up with wonderful ideas to harness solar and wind power. There's many things we can do, except we're not addressing the issue. And we keep waiting for somebody else to address the issue, like the government, or I don't know, Superman or God or Lil Nas X. I don't know. We're waiting for somebody to say, yeah, this crap is real and it's gotten horrible. And we are now at an extinction level event, except nobody's saying that because nobody wants to be that guy. Nobody wants to be the person who frightens people. I don't want to be the person that frightens people. I'm the angel lady. Come on. Yet, gang, I have to tell you, straight up, my job is not to blow smoke up people's butts, okay? My job is to bring through messages so we as a species can achieve our highest potential. And I believe now more than ever, our calling is to come to this planet and to heal that which we have injured. And really, to do that, we watch our spending habits. We watch how much we drive. I do eat beef, but the beef I eat comes from, overall, not 100% of it, but overall, we buy a cow every year that comes from, it's grass-fed, it's grass-finished, it's free-range, they're not on feedlots, they're humanely executed. It's not the feedlot cows that put all the excess methane into the air. I mean, any poop is going to put methane in the air. And that's another thing. Look how many human beings we have on this planet. And all that methane from human waste is going up into the air. There's a lot of methane in poo. That's what smells bad when you go to the bathroom. It's the methane. It's icky. So all of this, it's being released with almost 8 billion of us, plus this machine, this sociopathic consumerist machine called America that just cranks out all of these goods and services. I mean, it is astounding to me how when I look at all of this, it's astounding to me that nobody is actually stepping up and saying, gang, this is really bad. Like, we're 2 seconds from killing all the coral in the ocean. And so the reason I'm bringing this forward today is that, well, I was asked to, first of all. Secondly, if we don't start doing something about this, and in essence, doing something about, not waiting for the big man in the Oval Office to do something about it, but we as people, in our spending habits, in our eating habits, in our energy consumption habits, we can each individually make a massive difference here. If you happen to own a home and you can do, I know everybody's pinched for money right now. Money's about ready to go down the tanker too. So we live in some interesting times. We're not going to be bored, people. We're not going to be bored. This is the time of great innovation. And this is what I want to tell you today. If you own a home and you have an ability to drill a well and you have good, clean, decent water that maybe you need to boil it eventually to make it potable, but you've got decent water, drill a well, drill one. If you are somebody, especially the closer to the surface you are, the better off you are. So many of our wells are needing to be punched lower down, and that water is getting contaminated by all the junk we're shooting into the ground. So, if you can do that, great. If you're somebody who can find, there are incentives out there. There are energy incentives that allow you to put solar panels on your home. And I know none of us are made of money. I sure know my wife and I are not. Yet, if you do own a home or are able to subsidize your energy, usage with some kind of solar panel, that'd be great. And dang it, if I was the president of the United States, I would be going to the oil companies and saying, listen, I don't want to put you out of business because that'll collapse the economy. What we need to do is have you guys open up some sort of solar panel manufacturing plant thing, or we're going to give you some subsidies as we subsidize the solar panel application on people's homes, because we've got to do some kind of balancing out. And actually, there are certain oil companies, Conoco here in Montana is one of them, that are actually, they have scientists who distill their oil. And those scientists are very aware of the carbon emissions problem. And they are very aware of the fact that they are creating gasoline. So Conoco is one of the many oil companies that are actually trying to do something in terms of creating alternative means for energy, or in their distilling process, they're trying to at least do something to help instead of just cracking it out and pretending like it doesn't exist. And I think it's easy for all of us to sit in our armchairs at home and say, well, all oil companies need to stop producing oil immediately. Well, that's easy for everybody to say, and as much as I idealistically would love that idea, we do collapse world economies that way. And then you've got your mom and pop folks who've got their whole IRA invested, and they've invested in Exxon for 40 years and they didn't know the climate was going to hell back then. The biggest problem we had in the 70s was, oh my God, there's a hole in the ozone layer. And then that started to repair itself, actually, as we stopped putting so much aerosol into the air. So now you've got all these folks out there, and if we just cut oil together, if we just can it and say forget about it, then you've got all kinds of people who have zero retirement left. And so you got to kind of go about it in this funky way. However, we've got enough play money. Pretend money is what the United States excels in. We excel in pretend money. And why do I say that? Well, we're trillions of dollars in debt. This presidential administration has run us into a catastrophic amount of debt that who knows even if we'll ever pay it off. And it cracks me up because when you're talking trillions of dollars, it's not even real. It's just indebtedness, And so we get enough heat on this planet and it's going to shut down the electrical grid, and there's going to be no record of that anyway. So whatever. So what we can do in this time frame where it is not just likely that we are going to hit more than 1.5 degrees Celsius over, what the temperature of the earth was at the time of the start of the Industrial Revolution, or what they estimate it to be, it is imminent that we're going to nail it between 2 to 5 degrees Celsius, which doesn't sound like a lot, except it's going to be massive to our ecosystems. So if we can start to do little things, I know there's innovators, I can't say it, but I know you're out there. I know there are innovators out there. I can feel you all over the place. There are people out there who are inventors. One of the biggest problems that we have right now is an excessive amount of plastic bottles from drinking water. And a lot of our petroleum product goes into plastics. So figuring out, okay, well, how can we recycle these water bottles into solar panels? How can we recycle the water bottles into blades for wind turbine units? I mean, we can recycle anything into anything. And yes, of course, there's going to be carbon emission in the manufacturing of these items. Yet the cleaner we can create our energy, the better off we're going to be. And so I'm encouraging everybody out there, we don't own our home. My wife and I do not own our home. We rent our home. Yet for those out there who are fortunate enough to own your homes, begin to look at outside the box retrofitting that does not draw power off the main grid. Because those main grid, those are coal plants, those are nuclear power plants. A lot of that power comes off of dams. The hydroelectric power is at least fairly clean. It's damming up something, but at least it's not creating a whole bunch of extra carbon emissions into the air just to create it. And actually, nuclear power is creepily clean. It's just that it creates an absolutely deadly toxic byproduct. So there's something, with everything. I swear to God, it's a little crazy. And what I'm here to tell you is that this isn't like not going to happen. That's what I'm trying to tell you guys. This isn't not going to happen. This is going to happen. And if we don't get ahead of this and start working in tandem with our Mother Earth, then we will be wiped off. We will run out of food. We'll run out of water. We'll kill each other. We'll run out of bullets. Pretty soon, it's just going to be The Walking Dead without the zombies. I mean, that literally is a potential outcome for us if we choose to pretend this isn't happening. So I can kind of understand why the Telegraph in the UK was telling parents to not terrify their children. I mean, we don't want to freak anybody out. Yet we absolutely positively can do a ton to do our part to at least not let it get to the 5 centimeters. If it gets to 5 centimeters, 5 centigrade. I keep saying centimeters. 5 centigrade over that particular threshold, and that is a catastrophic situation for the planet. And I know that there are climate scientists out there who are talking all the time about the fact that our ocean levels, we're expected to raise like a half a foot or a foot by like 2090 or something. And I kept looking into this, and these angels are showing me 3 feet of ocean rise, 3 feet in certain places, over like a 5 or 10 year period. So I was a little confused and thought maybe I was reading those timeline wrong. So I go look at, I'm doing some research on this because I want to make sure that I'm not putting crappy information that's terrifying out for people. And I ran across science journals where these scientists are grieving, talking about the fact that the climate models that they have aren't even keeping up with the heating of the earth and the melting of Greenland and the melting of the polar ice caps and the raising of the oceans. And now the scientists are coming out saying, well, yeah, we're looking at between 3 and 10 feet in the next 10 or 15 years. So that makes a state like Florida go from sort of a wonky little lobe-shaped thing to a pencil, by the time all of that water comes in. So it's important that we note that our government is extremely aware of the fact that this is happening. All world governments know that it's happening. They don't know how to talk to their people about it. They don't know what to do with their economies about it because the economies have been so dependent on fossil fuels. They don't know what to do. And nobody wants to be the person, that guy or girl, to get out there and say, guess what? We're pulling the plug on all carbon emissions, period. Everybody likes to make fun of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and her Green New Deal. And I've got friends who are conservative and they're like, oh, she's a joke and she doesn't know what she doesn't know and she's this and that. And, and I'm not saying she's perfect. The chicken obviously has got to learn as she goes. She's pretty young. Yet at least she's trying to put together some sort of something that could, we're saying, look, we're going to have to put trillions of dollars into our own economy to shift the earth. And the response to that is, well, that's going to cost trillions of dollars. But we're okay to spend trillions of dollars, and I am saying trillions, gang, trillions, on Pentagon budgets that go missing because they are reverse engineering black ops technology that was reverse engineered from our off-world community. We have trillions of dollars going into secret military programs that are dealing with building UFOs and bunkers underground. Trillions of dollars getting funded into this stuff. But we can't spend trillions of dollars subsidizing an oil and coal business to keep the planet floating. So you have to kind of start to think to yourself, now hold on, this doesn't make any sense. If I'm a government official and I know this is happening and all of this science is coming across my desk and I know what's going on, and I'm looking down and nobody's letting me know where this money is going in the budget with the Pentagon because I'm a temporary employee of the United States. I'm called the president. So I'm temporary. They're not going to let me know where all of this budget is going. Well, what's the point of that then? Well, you have to start to wonder and start to think, geez, that's a group of people that kind of wants a whole bunch of the planet to die off. Because they could do something about that right now. And who would want a lot of people to die off on a planet? Well, the people who would want to inherit the planet and rule the planet and run the planet. So we have an extremely toxic, sociopathic, consumerist agenda that wraps around the entire planet of these people who think that it's going to be a blessing in disguise to get rid of the unsightly folks that are out there. I mean, there are actually people who believe that. I mean, it breaks my heart when I look into it. The unsightlies, the folks with leprosy, the people in third world countries who are starving and not contributing to the money machine. There are people on this planet, gang, who actually believe that an extinction level event will be a blessing in the end for all of those who are deemed worthy enough to live through it. And it grosses me out. So, yes, we are over capacity in our earth for people. That's true. I think the earth could really hold, 2 or 3 billion of us. And we're getting close to 8 now, billion. We're not there yet, but we're way over capacity for being able to take care of ourselves anyway. So how do we deal with all this? If this is boiling down the pike, I think we can keep us from 5 centigrade raising levels by individuals like you and me taking action on small levels. But you do that to let's just say half that population is a westernized, I don't know this for a fact, but I'm just guessing. Let's say half of the population of the world is in a westernized country who is an obsessive consumer country, and we make changes in how we imbibe and eat and do things. That's at least 3.5 billion people making changes in their habits. And some of those habit changes, gang, are what we buy. It comes down to even our shoes. God knows I love my shoes, people. Oh, I love my shoes. And I'm not trying to demonize any particular tennis shoe maker here, But there's a particular tennis shoe maker that has a lot of its stuff made in China and charges $300 a pair for those tennis shoes. And that manufacturing in China doesn't have any great big emission standards. I mean, they've got some. We have nothing now in the United States. So we're just barfing crap out into the world left and right, which is at least one of the things that I heard anyway. I heard that the Conoco refinery here in Montana, at least even though they have no more regulations on them, the scientists there were saying, no, we literally do need to regulate what goes in the air and the water, you guys. We can't just dump stuff to save $5. That's going to poison everybody. And then there's going to be nobody around to buy gas. So, and I think that there are a few conscientious companies out there like that. Yet, what do we do with this? Well, we can raise our vibration. We can get into helping our communities. We can get out there in love. Yet, again, I'm not trying to start a panic here. Yet, if we don't begin to alter our perception of the stakes right now, then we are flat in denial. And this brings up a really interesting point. I've had a lot of folks in my field get really mad at me when I talk about this stuff. And they call me a fearmonger. They say that I'm trying to whip people into a frenzy, that we can avoid this whole thing if we all just raise our vibration at one time, which is true. Yet I'm not quite sure yet how to get the entire planet to raise its vibration at one time. Would it help? Yeah. If we all ohmed in that key of A, would it vibrate this planet and Mother Earth, and would it help and repair all kinds of things? Would it go after carbon? Yes, it would. But that's really hard to get people to do that. So until we can get people to do that, until we can get people to understand that there's enough of an issue here, that ohming it out is probably one of our best alternatives. Carbon reacts in the atmosphere as any particle reacts, and we can break down carbon with vibration. And that's one of the things that I'm working on, because like I said earlier, I'm calling all of the innovators out there. How do we break down that CO2 that's building up in the atmosphere? How do we break it down? And I mean, it's a very complicated process, and it goes on and on and on. So what I wanted to talk about today was the fact that I'm not fear-mongering, gang, for crying out loud. Y'all know me. I'm not a fear-monger. I'm talking about solutions. And if we're not willing to talk about the problems, then, we're not willing to talk about the solutions. I have had many, many people approach me and say, you need to not say a word about this, because then it gets everybody afraid, and that fear consciousness gets into the ethers and it collapses the ecostructure spiritually. So if you say something about this, then everybody's going to get afraid and it's going to collapse the ecosystem. But if you tell everybody the world is fine and it's great and it's all going good and love is going to heal everything, then everybody's expectation is a healing, loving world, and that's the way it's going to go. And that is true if we had nearly all 8 billion of us on board with that. However, we don't, okay? And so I'm not a fearmonger. I'm not spreading untruths. I'm not here to get everybody creeped out. I am saying we can put the brakes on it getting to 5 centigrade higher than it needs to get to. We can do that. We can take care of that. We just have to be cognitive of it, because how does manifestation work, gang? Manifestation, positive thought, all of that only works really to its most effective degree. Sometimes it happens accidentally, if we are cognitive of what we are working toward. Now, I am not in fear of this time frame. These angels have showed me cataclysmic events since I was a little girl. I had a repeating dream, good God, from the ages of 2 years old all the way to 7 years old. And I won't tell you the whole dream, but I had this repeating exact dream. It was the exact same way every night, of walking up a tower and looking at a tower. And as far as my eyes could see, it was just refuse that was on fire, and a really low cloud ceiling that was purple. And it was reflecting the fire off of these, it kind of looked like Ground Zero. Remember what Ground Zero looked like at 9/11? And it was just piles of refuse everywhere, except imagine some of those piles on fire. But there were no structures. It was just as far as my eye could see was this fire, fire piles. And I thought it was, as a little kid, I thought it was a junkyard. I didn't really understand what I was looking at. Yet as I've gotten older, I don't think that is an imminent particular timeline. I think it is possible that we could get so hot that things just collapse, When I was a teenager, we were in the middle of the Cold War, so I thought maybe I was seeing a nuclear holocaust, and that's what it looked like. I can't even tell you what would cause something like this. However, the point being is that we have the opportunity to get amazing as a species. And that's what I really want to talk to you about. We have an opportunity to do some things that in no other time frame has the human species stepped up and done. We hear all the time about the greatest generation in World War II and how America banded together for the war effort. I mean, people brought in their pennies, they brought in their copper piping, people brought in their rubber tires. They gave whatever they could in World War II because we were running out of resources. And all of our guys were on the front line. So Rosie the Riveter, all the women went in to do the work that was needed to be done. We know how to band together as a country. So I'm going to put this charge out to all of you. I believe that we have a charge upon us in this time frame, that we are the next greatest generation. I believe we are the next greatest generation. We are the new greatest generation, where we give of ourselves so that our planet, our children, have a shot here. And I'll tell you, gang, we are already past the point of no return. We can't reverse it. It's barreling towards it. And our government isn't going to save us. Other world governments aren't going to save us. I mean, what the heck is France going to do when America is the largest consumer of anything on the planet and we're pretending none of this is happening? So we are just a freight train out of control down a hill right now, at least in terms of the people leading the country. So what can we do? Well, we are the next greatest generation. We know how to give of ourselves. And like I said, all you innovators out there, I want to see who can make some kind of solar panels out of recycled tires and recycled water bottles. I want to see that happen. I want to see that black base. Let's get that going. Let's make plastic piping that could be used in wells. Let's make windmills. We can do this, gang. Let's figure out how to make above ground hydroponic gardens so that we can capture that rainwater and grow hydroponic gardens and hydroponic food so that we can actually feed ourselves. I encourage everybody who happens to have a plot of land or a patio or anything, grow yourself a tomato plant if you're not allergic to tomatoes. They have a lot of vitamin C. They're good for you. Grow some vegetables. I love me my corn. God bless corn. Yet corn has a ton of sugar in it. And it's not that corn's bad for you per se, but you need a lot of land to grow corn also. So there are other vegetables that don't take up that much space that we can grow. And we can band together and we can do this. We can start this innovation. And rather than looking at the space and time that we're in as a cataclysmic event where we crawl in a hole and die and cry because gasoline ate our planet, this is a time frame where our genius gets to shine. I am not afraid of what I'm looking at. I'm not afraid of it. I'm looking at it like a giant puzzle. I'm looking at it going, okay, we need to get our greatest minds going. The government cannot legislate everything. They're going to try. Now you watch this. The next few years, they're going to try to legislate what type of energy units can legally be attached to your house. And I mean, honestly, do you really think that somebody's going to be going around looking at your wiring? Good Lord. There's so many different ways to generate energy. And I'll tell you, it's really interesting. When I look at the energy that is running a UFO, okay, especially our Sirius AB folks, this energy device, it looks like a piece of plexiglass that's been scored on the inside with zillions of little ridges going one direction, and then there's zillions of, like, another piece in front of it has been scored, so there's little ridges going the other direction. And this thing is somehow pulling energy out of the dark matter that's in our universe. Tesla knew how to do all that. And GM came in and General Electric and seized Tesla's patents along with the United States government the minute he died. They took his research and they locked it away because he had figured out how to pull raw energy out of the air. And that's exactly how the off-worlders do it. I think Nikola Tesla had a lot of serious in him. And that's kind of a double entendre because he was kind of serious. So that being said, we've created these devices. And the fascinating thing about the off-world devices and how they make them is that they draw power from it's vibration, actually, that draws it to this unit. And I'm just going to see if I can get one of these guys to tell me how they make it. And if we have the materials here on Earth, I'll just post it up on YouTube and everybody can make their own power generation thing. Make one yourself, God. Yet it pulls all of this electricity in. And if I want to power a city, I can use the same exact size of unit because it pulls according to the need being drawn from it, rather than generating for something. So I find that super interesting. So basically, we have been being kept in the dark energy-wise in the United States for 100 years. We're 100 years behind where we should be. It's embarrassing. It's crazy. And all over the world. It's not just the U.S. All over the world, we're 100 years behind. And this is all fiscal. It's all to do with the big old dollar. So what I would tell you here is we have a lot of opportunity. We have opportunity to figure out how to purify water by running it through all kinds of bacteria and sand beds and all of that. So, and we don't have to just sit here and wait until there's nothing left and then freak out because there's no app for water purification. This is a time frame where we as the next greatest generation are being tapped to bring forward our greatest brilliance and our greatest sense of knowingness. And there are going to be people out there, gang, let me just tell you this straight up. There are going to be people who will be shooting down this science no matter how hard they push it. Look up a lot of the Australian scientists who are climate scientists have been bringing a tremendous amount of information forward about all of this. We have an opportunity. We can't stop it, and it's still going to get worse. Yet we have an opportunity out of necessity for our species to continue to survive. We have the opportunity to develop amazing technologies right now, and this is our consciousness challenge. Are we going to sit there and say, well, I don't know anything about science. I don't know why I'm getting this really interesting idea channeled to me. And I'm not going to say anything because I might feel stupid because I don't have a science background. Well, hell, I don't have a science background. I kind of do in a roundabout way. I have an acoustic sciences background with wave patterns and producing music. And, that kind of got me into my own study on science. Yet technically speaking, my background is in science, even though I do a lot of scientific study. Yet my invention is just as valid as your invention. Let's stop telling ourselves that we can't. Let's stop worrying about being ashamed to try something. Let's stop worrying about what relative is going to say, you're scaring people with this climate crap. This is just a cycle in the earth and it does this every 10,000 years. It doesn't do this. This is a brand new chapter in WTF, people. So I really, truly believe that we as the next greatest generation can come forward and rise to this challenge. And yes, vibrationally, vibration is huge. If you can get up every morning and meditate for 5 minutes and 5 minutes before you go to bed, and as long as you can, get bare feet on the ground and send love into Mother Earth, our planet is actually freaking alive. Did you know that? Now, I know we can think, well, now it's got a lot of life on it. And blah. No, our planet is a being. Our planet is alive. Why the hell do you think so many of our off-world cultures were drawn to this planet in the first place? Of course they were drawn to the magnificence of the vortexes and the water, and it's a giant spinning electromagnet, which makes it an incredible jump point from A to B. It's an incredible place here, and it's an incredible airport if you have the proper, technology. Yet they originally came because the entire planet has a heartbeat. It's called the Schumann resonance, 7.83 hertz. It's this heartbeat They recognized it as a living creature that brought forward living creatures, that lived in harmony with its living creatures. We as a human species are connected. We are a biospecies, and we are connected to one another telepathically, energetically, and emotionally. Everything on the planet feels the planet, and human beings feel one another. Okay? We are an empathically driven species. All humans are empaths to a degree. I run into lots of people with accelerated empathic gifts, and we call that being an empath. And those empathic gifts are blowing open left and right all over the place right now. I mean, it's pretty freaking amazing to me what I can find and see out here in the universe. So the mother, the planet, is a being that's alive. It gave birth to life on top of it. And it is not doing too well on its surface. Now, underneath, it's fine, but its surface has a fever because it's trying to burn off a virus that's trying to kill it. I mean, it is crazy. You look at the crap we've done on this planet. My God, human beings need a sharp flick in the forehead for our hubris. You look at the HAARP array, the high auroral frequency arrays that are not only in the North Pole, but also the South Pole, up in Alaska and down all over the place. You find those HAARP arrays in Russia. You find those HAARP arrays down in Antarctica. And they shoot high-frequency sound waves into our ionosphere to stimulate the plasma. We don't even really know what the plasma is. It's just this thing that we call plasma. I'm not even kidding. That's actually a fact. We're not even sure exactly what it's comprised of or what its function is, but we know that it creates a barrier around the Earth. So we have to have and we refract all of our telecommunications off of that plasma barrier or the bottom of the ionosphere. So here we are shooting high-frequency sound waves into it to see what it does if you stimulate it. Well, really what we're trying to do is open up wormholes, and we're trying to do it sonically because as we've tried to reverse engineer our off-world stuff, we figured out that they travel along natural ley lines and naturally occurring vortexes. And wouldn't that be great in the United States if we could just open a wormhole and drop our whole army right in the middle of Iran at one time? Just overnight, like beam them over there and boom, 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 and here we go. I mean, literally. And then we were also trying to do some weather augmentation. We found out that agitating the ionosphere will agitate the weather patterns. We're still not sure how or why, but this has been kind of a weird wraparound trying to figure out how to get all this working. So we do that on the planet. We turn around and shoot all of these toxic chemicals into underground water sources 10 and 15,000 feet below our planet. We have no idea who else is using those aquifers. We have no idea what Middle Earth societies might be there. We have no idea what the hell's under there. But we're just dumping all our trash, just sociopathically acting like we don't have any consequences. So our poor mother, the Earth, is like, I'm just going to get a fever and burn all y'all out of here. Y'all are freaking me out in a massive way. So, what I would tell everybody here is that it's time for all of us to step up. Okay? Addressing the climate issues that doesn't make you a naysayer. It doesn't make you an angry person. It means that you're actually looking at what's happening, and we can change that if we address it. And if we go at it knowing that our genius is something that we can apply in this time frame. And it can start with every one of our households. We're going to look into some solar panels, even though that we don't own the house. But luckily, our renters are really super cool, and they're really cool, forward-thinking people and would probably let us put some up, I mean, we're looking at how we can not just lessen our carbon footprint, but lessen our vibrational footprint and how we can spend more time with Mother Earth. So if you can meditate for that 5 minutes in the morning, meditate for 5 minutes at night about sending that being, it's a real being, just like you'd pray for a family member who is sick, pray for the earth, send that being love, send it support. The only way we can really, really turn this backwards is metaphysically, is to do it through spiritual physics. And we've got to start someplace. And most people, you say spiritual physics to them, and they're like, oh, you must be voting for Marianne Williamson, you weirdo. Ew. I don't know why everybody's all of a sudden from Baltimore in my story, but there it is. So this is something to be proud of. If you're here on the planet and you're listening to this, you are part of the next greatest generation. And we will rise to this occasion, and our brilliance will come forward, and we will resonate properly in our DNA. We will get that going. We will make that happen. Yet start where you can and do your best to educate people that this isn't pretend, and we don't need to be terrified. We just need to be. If we put a garden on top of the roof of every building in New York City and planted grass and trees, that would refract a ton of heat. And it would absorb a ton of heat instead of reflecting it. It would absorb it. There are all kinds of things we can do here, gang. It just involves becoming one with our natural resources and our planet again. So I encourage you all to do that. I encourage you all to be emissaries for the new greatest generation, because that's what we're here to do. Don't be afraid. Be brilliant. Don't be afraid. Be creative. Don't be afraid. Be courageous. Be courageous. And when somebody spits in your face and calls you a weirdo and says you're just bringing negativity into the world or projects a bunch of crap onto you, send them compassion, because that's all they got. That's the best they've got in facing an extinction level event. We're not here to proselytize or to change minds. We're simply here to do brilliant things with the time that we have to do them. And that, gang, that's a message from the angels, because it's the best shot we got. I love you all, and I will see you next week.